Hey folks, Steve here with a special unboxing for you today. Indeed, the latest game in the BCS series, Inflection Point, another Battalion Combat Series game, which I like. I do like the system quite a bit, actually. Though I've had a little trouble with Valley of Tears in the not too distant past. Um, but here we have yet another entry, and this is one. They've got the billing here. A designer is Dean Essig, and this game was in the process of being, I think, finalized in design and being developed when Dean passed. So this is still, another gift from Dean, after his passing, that the team, I'm sure Carl being a big part of it, he's the developer, helping to get this to a finalized state. So exciting to see this arrive and is now the red box game in the BCS series. Each of the games has had a different color. This one's red. It's very striking looking, isn't it? So we're looking at Battle for, I'm going to mispronounce this, Kalak, Battle of Chur River. Interesting. I think this is uh, another case where in the MMP sort of like research and development part of the organization, like they were able to reuse, I'm sure, various aspects of the research that they had done for the, I think it's like Panzer Battles, SCS game, that sort of thing. Kind of like how like Last Blitzkrieg informs Ardennes 2, that kind of thing, where we've got conflicts that get represented in different systems, and you can appreciate what each system tries to do with the subject. So this is yet another one. Now, what is interesting here is this would be the second East Front. I believe it was the second East Front uh, BCS game. The first being Panzer's Last Stand, and that is a late, later war game, we'll call it, where the Germans are kind of being pushed back by the Soviets, and of course you have the attempts to relieve Budapest. Here, this is much earlier, right? We're talking 1942, so we're right kind of in the thick of the Middle War, and as the game implies here, Inflection Point, an important kind of shift in the progression of the war in general would we would expect to have happen here. Now, I will point out I got a little baggie of these spacers uh, in my shipping box, and so I assume that these are intended to come with the game, unless they arrived for some other reason, which I'm not sure. But I think these are going to be used to mark certain game effects. I know folks use these sorts of things in other war games, so I don't know if this is like you need these for sure or not, or if it's just nice to have. In which case, I'm more than happy to have them. That's great. So thanks MMP for sending these along. I don't need. Well, I probably do need to redo my kitchen floor, but we'll use these for the game anyway. Um, so let's just look on the back really quick. This is typical MMP fare, a picture of the action, as you can see, all BCS goodness. And in terms of the actual gameplay, we're going to have a 10-turn Battle for Kalak scenario, a 3-turn entry of the tank armies, which might be a fun one to knock out, a 10-turn Battle of Chur River, 5-turn Formosan offensive, and 4-turn attack of the Fifths, and a whole bunch of other stuff here for the actual components. So 2.0 rulebook, we're still on 2.0, I believe. We've got charts and tables, that's great. The support rulebook for 2.0, the game specific rulebook. Well, actually, oh, that's interesting. So there's a inflection point rulebook, but then a specific rulebook for each halves of the game, which is interesting. That's a lot more rulebooks than maybe we're used to. Turn record track, 2 maps that are full sized, and then one slightly smaller map or half sized map. So 3 maps total, but it's more like 2.5. 1100 counters, which is not that many. 2 unit sheets and 2 BCS marker sheets, like that. I'd say like that's not a lot of counters. It's a fair amount of counters, but like compared to many other games, that's not so bad. 5 scenarios total, 3. Yeah, we got that box and dice. Easy peasy, right? Easy peasy stuff, guys. And this is I'm going to say standard game box size, so actually skinnier than the last couple of entries in the series, like Panzer's Last Stand and Valley of Tears, which are actually quite big boxes here. So we'll strip that shrink and get things opened up here. As usual, we've got the packaging slip, which tells us all the things that we should expect to find, which we should already know. The Inflection Point rulebook. Now this is it's 12 pages, so it's not super long, but this is semi-glossy paper, so this is actually nicer quality than I think some older MMP games tend to come with, like the dry matte paper. This is semi-glossy, and there's Mr. Essig himself. So already we're breaking into the designer notes in the Inflection Point rulebook almost immediately, other than some initial commentary, and there's going to be lots of historical notes here, player notes, which I guess that means that the game rulebook is really more all the design and sort of non-game reading potentially, which is a fine place to put it. Like, just stick all that fun stuff in a separate book. And we have the terrain effects chart on the back. So this will be, this is always some of my favorite parts of the war game is getting to read this stuff and flip through it. So that's in its own dedicated book. So it might be easier to not have this laying around the table when you're actively playing the game. Might save you some paperwork there. 2.0 series rules, again, semi-glossy, color, 3-column format. If you're already familiar with BCS, not much to say here. You're going to have another copy of the rules at least, and generally the 2.0 series are an improvement over the old rules, so always nice to have an extra set of rules there. This is now, I've got several rule books. That's great. So here's the first map. This is going to be the half-size map, actually, and just based on the way it feels. And you can see the Chur River, Sorovakino. I'm not even going to try to pronounce that. I'm sorry for folks who know these places better than I do, unfortunately, at least how to pronounce them. But yeah, this is clean MMP style maps, and I do have an appreciation for the map style. I mean, there's lots of different map artists out there. These tend to be very clean and utilitarian, and I don't mind that at all. So this is just fine looking map. You see the roads, the trails, and the different terrain bits. And obviously the primary roads are going to be really important for your HQ and supply tracing. If you're not familiar with the series rules, they are a very different sort of war game, but really something special. These are the standard markers, so your hit markers, artillery markers, and various different markers that denote capabilities and setups for your units and their fatigue levels. So for BCS veterans, this is, you might not even punch this counter sheet if you've already got your stockpile of counters handled elsewhere. But for new folks, this is all, I'll say, game neutral counters. These counters are used in every game in the series. The charts, the nice sort of cardstock quality. It's just fine. It folds out. If you're not familiar with the series, there's a variety of different charts that you are using to determine activation. There's the different combat charts, and yes, there's more than one to look at. There's regular combat, but there's also the engagement table, which is how armor units engage each other, which is different than a standard sort of assault combat. And the game has a variety of different modifiers that factor in. Game system is pretty snazzy, I will say. All right, that's an additional counter sheet for the regular stuff. And then here's our first actual I'll say rule book for game specific stuff. So sure, it's actually just 4 pages, and it looks like a lot of that, or a big chunk of it, is the scenario information, and there's not much in the way of very particular special rules. It's this page of special rules for the Chur stuff, and then it's all scenario, and on the back, order of arrival. So very thin. This is 4 pages. Depending on how big the other one is, I wonder if maybe they shouldn't have just kept it all in one book. But I don't know. I'm not the producer. I don't know what's going into that. This is one of the full-size maps. I'm not going to pulled out the whole thing because this is going to be, again, what you would expect if you're familiar with the map style of MMP. But you can start to see in important places a VP location being denoted here, paper maps, color maps. I'm at the point in my gaming career where I think I might even prefer paper maps these days, but I don't know. Okay, so here is counter sheet 2, and this is focused on the Russians, and so you can see the different formations here. So yes, obviously the unit color banner is very important to organizing these. That's the hope that someday Last Blitzkrieg gets republished with the color banners to make it easier to parse. Um, you start to look at some of the armor values, so 3 plus the uh, capability number of 3. So we're looking at 6s. So that's not bad, I guess. Depends on how good the Germans are. And everything looks well aligned. This is a quality check more than anything, but you see the variety of different units, big 5-step or 6-step infantry, few machine gun units, and we got some Marines. I'm not sure if they're actually going to be doing any naval stuff in real terms in this game, but variety of different things, the different anti-tank units. All straightforward stuff. I'm going to take a look on the back really quick. Yeah, so you see a lot of the movement mode differences. So most of the time these units are going to want to stay in combat mode to be effective, but the armor can be valuable in either configuration. The clock, another 4-pager, order of arrivals on the back, scenario information within, and then the special rules for this one look like they spread from page 1 into a little bit of page 2. So this is, again, at the table, if you're just playing one scenario or the other, you don't need to have as, the amount of pages on the table is less than it otherwise would be, but you're still looking at two different rule books, right? The regular rule book and then whatever special rules you need here. Here's the second charts and tables. That's always good. The other map. What was amusing was it pointed out that this is online, folks. Like the MMP symbol is all fudged up here. I don't think that really matters for anything. I don't think that affects anything. No need to issue new maps, I don't think, guys. That's probably not needed here. Unless you really care about that MMP symbol being clear. But otherwise, I think we're good. And then we have the Germans, which always good to compare. Yeah, okay, so the German armors tended to be rocking an 8 total, their armor factor, and then their sort of doctrine skill factor of 5, so 8, so quite a bit better than the Russians. Probably not too surprising, but of course in the game things may get hairier. It looks like the Russians actually stretch onto this counter sheet as well, so a whole counter sheet for Russians and then a little bit more on top of that, and then the Germans operating with most of counter sheet 1. And a few other markers to help keep track of air points, I think. Air artillery, airstrike points, I guess is how we should refer to those things. So the counters all look good, not seeing any issues, always pretty straight on. Have not really had many counter quality issues. Now, just to point out, this is a white core, so certainly in the realm of counter quality that I would want to punch and round the corners for. If they were brown core, I might be less inclined to round the corners, but that will be the case for that, I imagine. We do have 2 dice, the perennial red and white from MMP, and our turn track with weather tracking, air supply points, placement schedule die roll chart, and all that good stuff. So reasonably, yeah, I was about to say it should be one side, but it is one side. Pretty straightforward stuff. So have that next to your notes on the table. That's what you'll need. And then we have the support book. This is really, it's nice to have in here as a series veteran. It's less useful because I've already absorbed it. But if you're new to the series, or like you pick up this game and it's your first BCS game, and you've chosen this one over, say, AeroCorps just because you like Eastfront, whatever, please do use this book. Read through this book. It's going to be really helpful to understand how this system works differently from other systems that you've probably played over your wargaming you know, experience, perhaps, if you've been playing wargames for a long time. It's going to feel very different. If you're new to wargaming, then maybe this is an easier transition because you don't have as much um, pre-existing assumptions or expectations. The BCS is just really good in terms of representing that armored units have a different method of engagement than, say, infantry units or mixed formations potentially gain a lot from having that combined arms benefit because they can engage like an assaulting infantry unit, or it can engage like a armor unit, and this game reflects those differences in capability, and in fact picking the right unit for the right job, which I think is an important thing to represent. In a lot of war games, if you're just dealing with, hey, here's combat factors, and we're inevitably just looking at counting factors and doing CRT odds rolls. This system breaks you out of that. That's not to say that those ways of doing wargaming aren't useful or good. It's just that this actually provides an alternative, a meaningful one, that you're not just pushing factors around the map. You're really, it just feels more, there's something to it. I don't know how to explain it, guys. It feels more natural that, like, I have a body of infantry, and that infantry is going to be hard to dislodge because of the way that infantry operate. That armor is going to have certain advantages to, armor that is not opposed by other armor is going to have a variety of advantages to harm, let's say, units of infantry sort. And it's how you engage with your support, your anti-tank support, your own armor, how those things engage, the terrain. It all comes together in a really entertaining way. And in games, at least, where the sides aren't totally one-sided, like maybe in Valley of Tears, you can get a really interesting game experience, and it really forces you to think about how to use your formations, not just I'm going to put all my combat factors into one place and bust a hole. It's I need to actually, busting a hole in the enemy line is about actually maneuvering the units appropriately, focusing on the right place, and ideally, getting the results that you want through a diligent exercise, not just piling up points and rolling a die. Which makes BCS really fun. I mean, I really truly enjoyed the system. Panzer's Last Stand was plenty fun for the East Front. I'm glad we're getting something a little earlier in the war, the first of these, which gives us a different look at the German versus Russian simulation. It would be interesting to compare to the SCS game just to see, what I'm sure this would be a more, I think, entertaining game for me because I prefer BCS over SCS as a general rule, but SCS is plenty fine and fun system, just a lot simpler and more straightforward, more traditional, we'll say. And I do think BCS is a little more approachable than, say, OCS. And, I think the best argument against OCS's supply point system actually comes from design notes from Dean from BCS. So, you got a lot of options when it comes to picking your wargame system of choice here, and at least for battalion level interactions, yeah, sure enough, BCS is a lot of fun. So check it out, guys, if you haven't. If you're a series veteran, then this is more goodness for you. If you're new to BCS, I still might recommend a different BCS game as your first BCS game, but given that this is available now, today, it's in stock, if you've thought about the series and, hey, World War II, there's always a lot of East Front coverage, check this one out and see what it does for you. Anyway, thanks for watching, guys. Hope you enjoyed the unboxing video. Enjoy.